Do you think you can learn to survive in extreme conditions by sitting back in your chair and snacking on pretzels while watching the Cinema Summary channel? Do you think the monsters are so dumb and the writers of the original series are so lazy that a 30-minute video can lay out all of their flaws and prepare you for the apocalypse? Scratch your head and really think it through. Let's take a look at some of the not-so-useful tips from the How to Beat the Sweet House. You'll be glad you clicked on this video once you realize how unreliable YouTube tips can be. Fasten your belt so you don't get caught with your pants down. We're about to start. Let's introduce the main character. His name is Hyun-soo. He is an orphan, an avid gamer, constantly strapped for cash, and a hikikomori. Have you heard about this? They are also known as hiki. They're like geeks, but with more serious problems. Hikikomori are people who opt out of social life, preferring to isolate themselves to an extreme degree. If you give them a working gaming PC, an internet connection, comics, and manga for entertainment, they'll be happy. Real hikis are unemployed and have no romantic relationships or real-world friends. They're like the epitome of loners. They spend all of their time online or reading comics. They either get their money from their parents or make some sort of casual earnings or have savings. Hyun-soo is a hiki. He had always been an avid gamer, and after losing his parents and sister in a car accident, he lost interest in almost everything around him. The only reason Hyun-soo wasn't in the car with his family that day was because he was obsessed with a video game and refused to go out with his family. His indifference saved his life, but left it completely deprived of meaning. He has been suicidal for a long time. He has even marked a date in his calendar. He is fighting a war inside. Does he carry on living, or would it be better to die? As you can see, it has been very hard to keep his life together. Hyun-soo lives in a dilapidated building, something like a hostel. It looks more like something you would expect to find in North Korea, which is working more toward developed socialism than its southern neighbor, which is more inclined to believing in the American dream and capitalism. In the very beginning of this series, there is a moment where everything could have ended in an instant. Hyun-soo almost lost his life by pure chance. A fragment of a lawnmower flew inches from his head, and only his gamer's instinct saved the series from a premature finale. You need to take better care of yourself, man. You've got to start being more careful! There is a reason why he doesn't. Hyun-soo gave up on himself a long time ago, and as we have mentioned, is even thinking about suicide. So why would he look around him? And as the video suggests, change the locks on his house for greater security? Why would a person who does not value his own life do anything to protect it? He clearly doesn't have any money to spare, and making his door more secure when he was planning how to leave this world was clearly not a priority. This is the main character, his problems and his inner world. This all takes place in a dorm in South Korea. Let's get to the action. It all starts with Hyun-soo sitting in his room playing video games non-stop for a week in his small room surrounded by piles of trash that is getting moldy. I wonder how he keeps his skin in such good condition and how his eyes aren't bloodshot. Is this just how Koreans are? Or does Hyun-soo have miracle eye drops and some moisturizer hidden in his pocket? If he does, then I need this guy's skincare regimen. If you know what products he uses, write them in the comments. When Hyun-soo goes to the door to pick up a crate of instant noodles, he notices that his house has been vandalized. The box of noodles was torn open and the food has been ruined. The culprit left a trail of noodles behind them. Who could have done this? I have one suspect, of course. Cookie! However, the trail of noodles led Hyun-soo to a different beast entirely. He sees a hand reach out and devour a severed cat head. This was no coincidence. Hyun-soo didn't feel the need to investigate further and runs back to the safety of his bed where he covers his head with his blanket. A great escape plan. Unfortunately, it is only effective against the boogeyman. Then the doorbell rings. Hyun-soo is visited by his pretty neighbor, who is an actress and model, but Hyun-soo refuses to let the neighbor into his fortress. At this point, we understand that this is fiction. Hikikomori are big fans of pop idols of all stripes. If there was some sort of model actress at his door, he would open it immediately. This would have been his end. It soon becomes apparent that this charming girl has become a monster with an insatiable hunger for meat. Before becoming a monster, she constantly had to restrain herself to stay in showbiz. She fed most of her food to her cat, who she eventually ate. How ironic. It's a shame that the cat will not get to enjoy this great twist from the screenwriters. Now that Hyun-soo has survived the girl's attack, the video suggests that Hyun-soo look for an opportunity to call for outside help. The mobile networks are down, so the wise advice from the video is to hang sheets out of the window with an SOS message written on them. So how many sheets and cans of paint do you have at home? Personally, I don't have any of this. If Hyun is anything like me, he'll have the same problem.
Hey, fuck you, buddy!
Maybe everyone in the building should come together, share information, form a militia, tear the locks off the doors and break free. Not a bad idea. They did some of it. So what happened? The local Slender Man attacked them. He must have been a fashionable guy once, judging from his shirt, and his mouth was torn open. Personally, I think his mouth injury was the result of a yawn that went too far. In the series, he can be driven away with a fire extinguisher and a strong push from a female firefighter. I find this hard to believe. First of all, how often do you see fire extinguishers in a rundown apartment building? Secondly, where did this slim girl learn to get so much power from her shoulders? How is she not an NFL star with such talent? Let's move up to the next floor. There we encounter a drunk. He mutters something to himself, curses his boss, and then slowly turns into a monster. The monster could have easily caught the girl, but her neighbor showed up with a katana. Stop. This is like a fairy tale. Of course, I understand that Asia is a completely different cultural environment, but we all know neighbors use drills, not swords. He should have spent a couple of years drilling against the neighbor's wall. That would really make his head explode. That's how a heroic neighbor would act. No need for katanas here. Why would anyone have a katana anyway? In case Korea becomes occupied by Japan again and they get drafted by the shogun? The next day has a whole new set of problems. Hyun-soo realizes that he is starting to turn into a monster. Hyun-soo is searching the web for answers and thinking about getting himself some ramen when the drunk, who is not only now a monster, but is missing half of his head, sneaks into his apartment. The monster is blind, but has the sense of hearing of a bat. If you didn't know, bats have excellent hearing. They make great listeners. You can go tell him about your problems. The big-eared monster prowls around Hyun-soo's apartment while he hides on the floor. To tell the truth, he had no chance of surviving. He hadn't eaten for at least a day, maybe longer. His rumbling stomach would have given him away and the big-eared monster would have attacked him. However, in this world, hungry people's stomachs stay silent. Let's move on. Hyun-soo hears someone screaming out of his window. The screams came from some kids who have just seen their father attacked by a huge eye. Hyun-soo throws his computer monitor at this all-seeing eye, which would never happen. As we know, gamers protect their setup at all costs. It's their life. The eye gets angry at Hyun-soo for not being environmentally friendly and throwing his monitor out of the window. A veteran of the air pump war comes out to help. He is armed with an air rifle, but built from a crutch, tubes, plastic, and what the man remembers from design class at school. A shot from this future Smithsonian exhibit hits the eye in a weak spot and it retreats. What are the chances such a great craftsman lives in the building? In my experience, an old geezer like this would be more likely to make some moonshine, go on a binge, and wait for everything to blow over. The next tests the residents face are a former jock. He has become a meat golem, and a spider-like monster of unknown origin. They manage to beat the first one in an epic battle. They defeat him with the katana and a fire truck. The girl escapes the second monster through the ventilation shaft. I have several issues with this. Why did the huge meat monster take so long to attack? Maybe he wasn't trying to kill them, but needed a ride? In this case, his plan worked out. The firefighter took him where he needed to go, straight to hell. As for the spider, I have no idea how the girl managed to escape. Have you ever tried to catch a spider? If you have, then you know how nimble and agile they are. It's odd that she could escape from the giant spider so easily on all fours. Judging by this show, if it managed to fire its web at you, then you could just cut it with glass. This makes no sense. An ordinary spider web is stronger than steel, and this one should be even stronger, but we don't have time to talk about it too much. Next up, a fight with a centaur who was once a sprinter. His horse legs allow him to run even faster now. The centaur was defeated with a flamethrower, which makes sense. There is nothing faster than fire. The sprinting monster could not get to the water in time. He wasn't quite fast enough. You would need to be a former sprinter with horse legs and the ability to reach superhuman speed. Sounds familiar. The spider comes back, but falls into a trap. Somehow, a 2 centimeter thick rope, a screw, and the survivors hold the spider back long enough for Hyun-soo to run over and finish the monster off. I would like to have such useful tools in my house, but it seems that this only happens in the movies. I doubt they could have held back the huge spider that is full of rage and weighs 150 to 200 kilos. Does anyone else want to take on the unstoppable tenants of this apartment building? Yes, the security guard, who apparently watched The Fly one too many times, comes along. His weapon of choice is a lawnmower, which would be scary in the hands of a caretaker. But the former guard moves like a zombie and is thrown down an elevator shaft with the help of a broken sword. He was armed with a stick that had sharp blades attached to it. Personally, I think the only way to take this guy on is with firearms, not close combat. And now the final boss, a monster that can't be killed, since he can shift from one body to another. He really can't be killed. Despite all of Hyun-soo's efforts, he is convinced to make an Ocean's 12 style escape and ride off into the sunset with a monster that I have labeled the Liquid Terminator, so that Hyun-soo can complete his transition into a monster. Game over. Nobody should have survived. Hyun-soo himself probably would have died at the very beginning at the hands of the cat-eating woman. What do you think about this? Could they have really escaped? What would you have done? Write your answers in the comment section. It's time to say goodbye. Don't forget